a lawyer in my family. I majored in mathematics and was graduating in 1964 from Ole Miss. My roommate, Bob Galloway, for a time when I was in school, is from Gulfport, and his daddy's a lawyer. And I'd gotten married not too long before that, and Bob was going to law school, so I literally just kind of followed Bob over to the law school. I started in September of 1964. I was walking up to the old Farley Hall with Bob Galloway, going to our first class, which was torts. And Bob looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, "Bob, what is a tort?" I didn't have a clue. And he said, "Guff, a tort is a civil wrong." And I thought, okay. We went into the class, and Professor Holder got out the roll, and a bane of being Abbott is I'm first on almost every roll. And he said, "Mr. Abbott, what is a tort?" And I looked at Galloway, who's been known to mess with me, and I took a deep breath and said, "Oh, Mr. Holder, a tort is a civil wrong." And he said, "Very good." And whoa, and he said, "What do you mean by civil?" And I said, "Not criminal." He said, "That's correct." And I thought, nothing to law school. And that was my first start. We didn't have a lot of choice when I was in law school. We had a large number of required courses. I was in the first Ole Miss class that was divided into sections that had, different teachers for torts, contracts, and such. Law school was tough. We took the LSAT, but it did not count to get you into school. They were making a base for using it later. So anyone who graduated from an undergraduate school could go to law school. That was the good news. The bad news was that in our freshman class, over half of the students in every class made D's or F's, and we lost over half the law school student body in the first year that flunked out. And those times have changed a lot since then. I go way back with my friend Robert Kayet. I had never met Robert until I started law school. I lived out with my wife Patsy out in Avent Acres, which is that old World War II barracks looking place in Oxford across from the cemetery. Those were three of the happiest years of our life. Almost everybody that lived out there was in law school. Robert and Margaret Kayet lived just a few apartments down from us, and Robert and I grew to be best of friends during our law school time. We coached the legal ladies softball team together. We were on the law journal together. We were studying for Roscoe Cross's future interest final together when the night before Robert began to feel worse and worse, and I took him to the hospital, and he ended up not taking the exam because he was having his gallbladder taken out, which I still kid him about. He'd do anything to get out of taking the future interest exam. We then ended up on the coast together, and Robert was in Pascagoula and I was in Gulfport, and we just stayed fast friends. And as I said, he was instrumental in helping me get a position on the faculty when I joined the law school faculty in 1970. It was John Fox who terrified everyone in the class. Roscoe Cross taught property for 30-odd years here. Bill Bunkley, who became dean, taught civil procedure. They were all really tough, put you through the grinder in class and such. Parham Williams, who later became dean for a long time, was an excellent professor. I took all of the courses I could take from Parham Williams, who is now a friend of mine. And we didn't have the specialties that they have today so much. Everybody took pretty much the same courses and planned to get out and have a general practice. When I graduated, I became an associate with the firm of Eaton, Cottrell, Galloway, and Lang in Gulfport, Mississippi that later divided into several other firms, excellent firm. There were 5 partners, and I was the only associate, which is, I discovered, not a good ratio with regard to who gets assigned to do what. But I had a very enjoyable experience for 3.5 years down in Gulfport with some really excellent attorneys. As I said, I joined the firm and made the 6th lawyer, which made us, I'm pretty sure, the largest law firm in South Mississippi. At the time, my friend Cliff Hodge joined Butler, Snow, and Jackson. I think he made the 13th lawyer, and I believe they were the largest law firm in Mississippi in January of 1967, which of course is something that's changed so incredibly, it's hard to imagine. I was fortunate enough to do well in law school, and I always enjoyed it, being a student and working on the law journal and writing articles. And in the back of my mind, I had thought, someday I really might like to teach. And after practicing for 3.5 years, my friend Robert Kayat was on the faculty, and I talked to Robert. He was really enjoying what he was doing, and I just decided I thought I'd give it a try, and they were nice enough to hire me. And I thank God many, many times, almost every day, that the Lord gave me that opportunity, because I've loved teaching from day one. Every morning I get up to teach, I'm excited about what I'm going to do still after all of these years, and it was that way throughout the years, where I taught 14, I think, different courses through the years. They don't do that anymore. They hire these prima donnas that are just going to teach this or that, but we taught whatever we were told to teach, and I learned something from every course I ever taught. I always thought I knew something about the course when I started, and discovered that I didn't know anything hardly, and half of what I thought I knew was wrong. So you can learn a lot by having to teach. Well, it was a labor of love. I enjoyed everything I had to do with the law school, which was almost everything before it was over. I taught 14 different courses, but I settled down into the civil procedure area and the real property area, teaching all of the courses that dealt with land and real property, and also the federal procedure course, the Mississippi Civil Practice course, the basic civil procedure course were my major areas. Started teaching in Old Farley Hall. We had almost no women and almost no minorities at the time that we started, but we consciously worked hard to achieve diversity at the law school, and have been very successful through the years. Right now, I think we have more female law students than we have male law students at the law school, and of course they've had a tremendous, wonderful impact on the entire profession. As I taught, we moved several times. They built what was the new law building. It looks like a spaceship over by the Student Union, right across from Old Farley Hall, and we moved into that, I think, in the late 70s. And then, of course, not very long ago, they completed the $50 million Robert C. Kayat Law Center. Chancellor Kayat then was kind enough to let us use his name to raise the funds, and we were honored to name the building after Robert, and it is an incredible teaching facility where we are right now. The students, to my mind, have not changed that much through the years. One wonderful thing about teaching law is that we get very motivated students that had to work hard to get the proper credentials to get into law school, and then they want to do well in law school for obvious reasons. So it's a joy to have them in class. I think I've taught roughly 8,000 students through through the years, so I know most of the people in the bar. I've had some very, very interesting students, such as John Grisham, who was in one of my classes and was quite a character and a hoot. I was meeting a year or two ago with the Supreme Court for, I forget what the purpose was, and someone said, "Does it make you nervous to meet with the Supreme Court?" And I said, "Well, not really. I taught 7 of them. They're afraid I might call on them as a matter of fact." The students have changed parallel to the legal profession in that we've got a number of various specialties now. We teach quite a few tax courses, and we get students that are planning to take all of those and then usually go on to get an LLM in taxation. We have a business section of the law school now where students can take courses that are related to transactional business matters. We even have a business center here within the law school. We've got an environmental law focus here at the law school, and of course none of those existed when I first started teaching. So that's a major difference that's developed and evolved through the years. I did serve as acting dean at the law school from 1985 for a year and a half. It was a fascinating experience that made me mature quite a bit as a person and as a professional. I discovered first that administrative work is totally different from teaching. As acting dean or dean of a law school, you're in charge of 100 or so employees with $1 million or so budget. All of the problems that come along with that, and the buck stops at the dean's desk when problems arise, and we had several. I think the best advice I got was from Chancellor Gerald Turner of the University of Mississippi. I'm one that tries to make everybody happy, which is not necessarily a good virtue. And everybody was not happy I was dealing with. And Chancellor Turner looked at me and said, "Guff, let me tell you something. If you can keep about 2/3 of them happy, you're doing a great job." I took that to heart and then learned some people are only happy when they're complaining and seem to not be happy. But overall, it was a very, very good experience. It led to us bringing on some other people as dean of the law school that did a good job. I've always been a fan of lawyers, and as a matter of fact, I think we have a wonderful profession, so I was honored to get to be involved in a lot of different things with the Mississippi Bar. I volunteered for almost every committee I could work with, and being on the law faculty really gave me an opportunity and time to do more than some people might be allowed to do. I was on the board of directors of the Young Lawyers section for years. We had a really active and great young lawyers group in Gulfport, Mississippi, when I was there, that spawned a bunch of presidents of the bar, as a matter of fact, from Lynn Blackwell and Joe Meadows, and then I was fortunate enough to get to serve as bar president in 1998. Excuse me, 1999. The bar has been instrumental in so many ways to help the state. Right after Hurricane Camille, our Young Lawyers section, led by Joe Meadows and some others, put together a program for legal aid for persons that needed it after the storm that was modeled by a number of other states. And when Katrina came along, we were ready, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go down to the coast and help for a week or so with persons that needed help. So the bar has just really been a huge part of my life, and a wonderful part of my life. It was a tremendous honor for me as a law professor to be asked to offer myself to be president of the Mississippi Bar, and then to be elected. I joined Dean Robert Farley, I think, is the only law professors that also served as presidents of the bar. I've always thought it was important that the law school work closely with the bar, and I've done what I could to have our students and faculty involved in all sorts of bar activities. Continuing legal education is something that has been a big part of my life. I started in the mid-1980s with Professor Bob Weems, and we started a program called Summary of Recent Mississippi Law that endured for 28 years. Before it was over, we were blessed to have 700 or 800 lawyers and judges, and we invited all of the judges and their clerks to come complimentary of us, and got a big turnout. And we like to think that the book that we published each year really added to what was being done in the state and helping lawyers to stay on top of the many changes that occur in the law. It was very interesting in our early years to see what happened. We put on our program for, I think, 2 years before CLE was mandatory, and we did not have that many people attend. And interestingly, those that did, it seemed to me, were the top lawyers in the state that probably didn't need continuing legal education. But when it became mandatory and everyone had to get 12 hours, the program blossomed tremendously and built to what it became by the time we retired from it 5 or 6 years ago. So that's been a great experience. After the storm, the bar put together a group of a number of them people, and I went with Jean McGee, a lady lawyer friend of mine from Tupelo. Went down and stayed in Gulfport and went over to Moss Point each day for a week, and met with people that had lost everything, had home problems, had been injured, and tried to steer them in the right direction as to what they might do in order to get aid from the state, from the federal government, if they needed attorneys, or how to deal with the insurance company. And to be honest, a lot of time we just hug them and tell them it's going to be all right, and people for them, and they will be able to work through this. It was an interesting experience. The legal profession in Mississippi has changed dramatically since I became a lawyer in 1967. When I went to Gulfport, all of the lawyers knew each other. There were no computers, there were no cell phones. You dealt with each other face to face, which I think was a very healthy way to have to do business. As the years have gone by, it's kind of crept up on us, but I remember when we first got Lexis and Westlaw and computerized research. That changed the legal world and still is changing the legal world. Law firms used to hire associates just to do research. Those jobs have pretty much gone to the computers, and I just read that there's a robot now that's been developed that can do the legal work for a national firm of 4,000 people. And I don't know where all of this is headed, but the ability to do your work by computer has absolutely just changed everything. I was talking to a friend in Jackson the other day, and one of the heads of their section in the Mississippi firm actually lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but does all of the work online. Cell phones are the same. When we first, Bob Weems and I first started doing our seminar, we would get lots of telephone messages, and they would be saved out at the desk for people to go get them, and then they would leave and go make a phone call. And as years went along, I had to start our our sessions by saying, now would everyone please turn off their cell phones, okay? So they wouldn't be ringing all during the meeting, and ask them, if you're gonna talk on it, would you mind leaving the room while you talk on your cell phone? So, technology has, and obviously will continue to make some really, really dramatic changes in our profession. Technology has certainly changed the profession, not only in the ways that you do business, but the interrelationships between attorneys, and some of it is really not good. We've had a civility problem that we've been working on for as long as I've been a lawyer. We've even had codes of civility and meetings to talk about how we can get along better with each other, and I'm afraid it may be getting worse instead of better, and I think part of that is that you don't have to sit down with somebody face to face or even talk with them on the telephone, and it's awfully easy to text or send an email that's curt or not polite, or allows the timing to be different. All of the filings now in federal court and rapidly all in state court are going to be online and computerized, which allows people to do things like file at 11:59 p.m. at night to cut somebody short on the time they've got to respond. But the legal profession will survive, and we'll just make changes as we're forced to sometimes, and move along. When I started practice, we had a minimum fee schedule, which was interesting. You had to charge certain amounts, and then that was ruled to be invalid. When I first started practicing, lawyers could not advertise. The U.S. Supreme Court announced that that was not proper, and advertising started, and we all see the extent to which it's gone today. And to be honest, I'm horribly embarrassed by some of the ads that I see on television by a lot of attorneys and even billboards and such. But that's what has developed, and the profession is adapting to it. And we've got lawyers now that practice all over the United States, out of Florida, say, but advertise the Morgan & Morgan law firm spends, it looks to me like millions and millions of dollars advertising in Mississippi, and they're really out of Florida, and they advertise all over the country just as others do. So that's the way it is, and the way we'll have to deal with it. Oxford, just as the law school, has changed dramatically since we moved here in 1970. If any of you have visited lately, Oxford is exploding as I speak. It is the fastest growing town in Mississippi and one of the fastest growing towns in the nation right now. Throughout town is a building project. They're building on every piece of land that anyone can get their hands on. That's good and bad. The law school has always had a very good relationship with the town. For years now, I've volunteered at our food pantry, and our law students come down each week and offer to give free legal advice to persons that need it, working with the Rural Legal Services office. We also have a landlord and tenant program here at the law school, where our students work with persons in Oxford and the area to help with landlord and tenant problems. We have another group that works with domestic relations problems. We've got a group from the law school that every year announces and then sets up offices to help persons with their income tax filing and problems that they might have. So we're very proud that the law school has had a long and rich history of working with Lafayette County and Oxford and all parts of the community. It's been a wonderful ride. I was fortunate enough to be added to the Ole Miss Law School Hall of Fame this year, and as some of my remarks, I was able to say that I've only had two real love affairs in my life. The first was with Patsy Abbott, who's been my wife for over 52 years now, and the second was with the Ole Miss Law School. Every day I've gotten up to go to work has been a pleasure watching these young folks that come in scared to death in their first week of law school blossom into excellent students and then go on to become partners in major law firms. I've talked to several governors of the state of Mississippi, U.S. Senator, almost all of the Supreme Court judges throughout the state, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful feeling to watch these people have the impact that they have in helping our state and being a part of the legal profession. So I just thank God for the opportunities that I've been given, and hope I've done a good enough job with the abilities He's given me. I've tried.